Before we start, I just want to say thanks for 100 subscribers. It was definitely a slow grind getting going, and things have really slowed down with school, but I want to say I appreciate each and every one of you. This past weekend, I had my fantasy hockey draft, and I had prepared with maybe 15 to 20 mock drafts, but mock drafts don't really prepare you for the real thing when nobody is auto-drafting. ADP means literal average draft position, but this is heavily influenced by Yahoo's rankings and X rankings, since for people drafting live, they're shown at the top and thus perceived to be better, and for computers who are auto-drafting, they are programmed to take those higher ranked players. So while you might look at someone like Braden Point, who is projected to go in the middle of the 9th round, you might think to yourself that you can wait until then to grab him, but it's pretty much guaranteed that everyone in your draft is eyeing up Point at that ADP, and everyone is willing to reach on him a little bit. So if you truly do value him that much, you should take him quote-unquote early so you don't miss out. The only reason he is so low is because Yahoo themselves have undervalued him going into the season, and that's skewing his ADP. I'm in a $100 buy-in 12-team head-to-head categories league that's run on Yahoo. Today I want to go over some players that went way ahead of their ADP and show you guys why you can't trust it when going into your own drafts. Starting with pick number 16 in the draft, somebody snagged Brady Tkachuk, who had an ADP of 30.7. So Tkachuk went 14.7 spots earlier than expected by ADP. I think this was a money pick, as there isn't anyone else who will get you 300 shots and 300 hits on top of being a 65 to 75 point player. Ottawa will be good too, so plus minus may be less of a concern than previous years. I personally was willing to take Brady as high as 12th if it came to it, but I ended up picking at 1, and I knew he wasn't going to be around at 24 even though his ADP was 30.7. Then at 18th, a huge curveball was thrown when Evander Kane was taken. Kane had an ADP of 62.9, meaning that somebody reached almost 45 picks to get their guy. I do think of Kane as Brady Tkachuk with higher offensive upside but lower shot and hit volume. I would have been comfortable taking him as early as 48th, but he did not even come close to that. Then at 23, this is where Jake Guentzel went. Guentzel wasn't as big of a reach as Kane was at 18th, but still, Guentzel's ADP was 33.4, so obviously this owner was super high on him. For this early on in the draft, reaching 10.4 spots is a bit much. I personally wouldn't make this pick, but only time will tell how it turns out. At pick number 36, this is where Mo Seider went. Seider's ADP was 45.3, so I was a little surprised here, but the ceiling and category coverage of Seider is quite high. Everyone is expecting Detroit to take big strides forward this year, and Seider is going to be at the helm of that. 9.3 picks ahead of ADP is the smallest reach on this list. At pick number 40, Chris Letang was taken off the board, and he was projected to go at 59.5 according to ADP, so a 19.5 pick difference. Letang also has incredible category coverage as a high-scoring power play 1 quarterback who has really high shot and hit volume. I personally was a pretty big fan of this pick and was really hoping to snag him at 48, but had a feeling his ADP was too good to be true. At pick number 49, this was actually my pick, and I reached hard on Brad Marchand, who had an ADP of 117, meaning I took him 68 spots ahead of his average draft position. I did this because Brad's ADP is heavily influenced by his injury, and he's actually going to be coming back from that injury earlier than anyone expected. But also, as someone who picked at number 1, I get 2 back-to-back picks, and then it's radio silence for 22 picks just by nature of picking at one end of a snake draft. I honestly didn't know if Marchand would be available at 72, and I personally think that when he comes back, he has the potential to be a top 24 player rest of season, and especially when it matters most in the fantasy playoffs. I know that looks ridiculous, and I was between him and Forsberg in that spot, but I figured that Brad has so much higher of a ceiling compared to Forsberg when he comes back that it's justified to reach this hard on him. Especially when other people in the draft are reaching hard and fast early on guys like Evander Kane, I didn't know if he would still be there at 72. At pick 52, Patrick Laine went. His ADP was 81, meaning he was selected over 2 rounds ahead of where he should go. At 55, Jack Hughes went, 40 spots ahead of his ADP of 95, and Georgiev went at 65, 39 spots ahead of his ADP. All 3 of these guys have really high ceilings and haven't had proven 82-game season success yet, so I can see why they were lower in terms of ADP, but why they were picked this much ahead of it. Laine will be playing with 115-point man Gaudreau, Hughes is looking like a point-per-game player, and Georgiev may be given the keys to the crease in Colorado. If they are your guy, reaching 2 to 3 rounds ahead of where their ADP projects them to go to guarantee getting them is not the worst idea in the world. At 72 and 73, it was back to me, and I wasted no time taking Dougie Hamilton and Braden Point, who had ADPs of 103.7 and 117.2 respectively. I again just couldn't risk losing guys I had ranked quite highly just because their ADP was lower than what it should be. 31 and 44 spots seem high, but I'm confident right now that those were the right picks. Point will be on a line with Cooch and Stamkos, both top 13 picks in the draft, and Hamilton should quarterback an up-and-coming power play in New Jersey. At pick 84, this is where Vincent Trocheck went, a staggering 73 picks before his ADP of 157.7. I think this is actually a really solid pick, as Trocheck is slotted to be PP1 on a 5-on-5 line with Panarin and has tremendous category coverage with shots and hits. I was hoping to get him a bit later on in the draft, but obviously this owner was on top of it. Finally, two of the fantasy Goon Squad MVPs, Gudis and Jeannot. I figured they would both be drafted above their ADP, and I was right. Gudis went at 103, which is 35 spots above his ADP, and Jeannot went at 105, which is 56.6 spots above his. If you are drafting guys like Gaudreau, Panarin, and Patrick Kane early, and you're banking on picking up these guys later on in the draft, don't wait too long and risk being SOL for hits all year. In summary, the guys that are being drafted in legit drafts way ahead of their ADPs are guys with high ceilings and people who Yahoo have ranked too low. So don't trust their ADP system and go with your gut. It doesn't matter if the other players clown on you. What matters is getting guys you've ranked the highest regardless of their ADP. Anyways, that's it for today's video. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed today's video, please consider subscribing. Thanks again for 100. Take care, everyone.